Never been so much fun. 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 Go to your brother, kill him with your gun. Leave him lying in his uniform, dying in the sun.
Welcome to an episode of the Amiga CD32 review project that I've been looking forward to for quite a while. Today I'll be reviewing one of my favorite games for my old Amiga 500. A game that is controlled by mouse, so it'll be exciting to see how it fares on the CD32. The game in question is Fodder, developed by Sensible Software and published for the CD32 by Virgin in 1994. A word of warning though, I love this game, so I'll most definitely be biased doing this review. In Fodder you control a squad of cute little soldiers seen from an overhead perspective, much like we know it from real-time strategy games today. The missions start off with simple objectives such as kill all enemy, destroy enemy buildings and destroy enemy factory. But as you progress in the game you get harder missions requiring you to rescue all the hostages or kidnap enemy leaders, protect all civilians or get civilians home. There are 24 missions to complete, spanning terrain such as the jungle, Arctic wastes, the desert, moorlands and the underground base. Each mission consists of up to 6 phases, meaning that you'll have a grand total of 72 levels to complete. And that's no small task, as this game gets deviously difficult after a while. Before you take on a mission, you're presented with Boot Hill, where your eager recruits line up waiting to be tossed into battle. The first time you see Boot Hill, it's empty. It's just a green, grassy hill with a lot of soldiers lining up below it. But as you lose soldiers in battle, each of those lives lost is depicted as a grave on Boot Hill. Higher ranking officers get nicer graves, while your common foot soldier gets a simple wooden cross. While the humor in the game may be very tongue-in-cheek, little touches such as Boot Hill show you that the designers also wanted to send a message about the meaninglessness of war and the losses that it brings. Many did not perceive it as such back in the day though, and the game drew criticism because of its humorous depiction of war. The controls in Fodder are fairly straightforward. You click somewhere to make your troops move there, and they'll do their very best to get to that point. You have a primary and secondary firing mode, the primary being a machine gun and the secondary being either throwing a grenade or shooting a bazooka, depending on which one you've currently chosen as your secondary weapon. The secondary weapons are used to blow up buildings and vehicles, but a well-placed bazooka shot is also just a ticket when dispensing of enemy snipers. The game is a joyful mix of strategy and action. Sometimes the best way of completing a mission isn't the most obvious one, so planning is definitely needed, and running heedlessly into battle will almost certainly get you killed in the later levels. Sometimes you need to split your troop into smaller troops in order to get through the levels. You can of course only control one troop at a time, but the troops that you aren't controlling will defend themselves, so this can be used to perform a pincher movement if need be. In some missions there are vehicles available such as choppers, tanks and jeeps, and using these vehicles in the correct manner is often paramount to your success in the mission. Some missions also have sentry guns that you can use to fire rockets or shells at your enemy, adding to the destructive fun. Your soldiers gain in rank for every mission they survive, and an increase in rank means an increase in accuracy, range and rate of fire, so these high-ranking officers quickly become invaluable assets, and you'll cry bitter tears when they finally die. The first 4 troops are called Jules, Jobs, Stu and RJ, named after the game's main programmer Julian Jameson, that's Jules, designer and musician John Hare, that's Jobs, musician Richard Joseph, that's RJ, and graphical designer Stuart Cambridge, Stu. If you're in any way like me, you'll quickly become very affectionate with these 4 characters. They are the troopers you start out with, and pretty soon you'll be protecting them as much as possible by sending lower level grunts out as cannon fodder, in order to keep these guys alive so that they may increase in rank and become super soldiers with an incredible range. I can almost hear you thinking, that's all good, but isn't it impossible to control on the CD32 without a mouse? Well, my good man, the answer to that question is quite surprisingly a resounding no. It controls like a dream. Much to my own surprise, as I was quite skeptical going in. The game has been perfectly adapted to being controlled using the CD32 controller, so sit back, relax and enjoy some cannon fodder on the big screen in the living room. If, on the other hand, you really need the mouse, you can of course just plug a mouse into your CD32 and off you go, but do give the controller a chance. There are so many things I'd like to tell you about Cannon Fodder. Like how the somber music being played after each mission, as you're being forced to watch the names of all the soldiers you lost, was in fact a song that John Hare wrote as a teenager after losing his girlfriend. Or how the jokers dressed up as soldiers in the intro is in fact the development team having a fun day out of the office recording a music video. If you're interested in these details and a whole lot more, I suggest you buy Read Only Memory's excellent book called Sensible Software 1986 to 1999, in which the author Gary Penn pieces together the history of Sensible Software and their entire catalog of games through interviews with founder John Hare. Luckily, all reviewers back in the day seem to agree with me on this one. Cannon Fodder is a bloody great game. Most scores are in the 90% range. Amiga Power even featured Cannon Fodder on their front cover in the December 1993 issue, and in their conclusion where they list pros and cons, they simply wrote, "Uppers, everything. Downers, nothing. The bottom line, buy it," while slapping a 94% score on it, and they retained that 94% score for the CD32 version. CU Amiga awarded the game a 93% score, and the CD32 version got a 90% score. In their review of the original version, they write, "From the very first moment you load Cannon Fodder, you know that you're in for a treat. The intro music and slideshow is one of the best I've seen. Normally I skip through intros, but Sensei's version of War Has Never Been So Much Fun captivated me. It's a brilliant toe-tapping tune. The attention to sonic detail has been carried over into the main game, with both music and sound effects perfectly scored. It's the simple touches, like the way that the sounds get louder the closer you are to the source, that make it. On the graphics front, there's no innovation, but plenty of good, solid Amiga art. There's loads of variety in the landscape types: jungle, ice, desert, moors, and the underground caverns. And the sprites' animation is very detailed considering how small they are. I love this game. It has its flaws, like the lack of order options, but on the whole, it's a very playable, very tough shoot 'em up. Be warned though, you'll need to have your sixth sense of humor head on to enjoy the puns. Many development teams, if they're lucky, go through a golden phase, and the Sensei boys are right in the middle of theirs just now. Can they do no wrong? Not as far as Cannon Fodder goes anyway. Cannon Fodder on the CD32 is an absolute joy to play. It looks good, plays beautifully using the controller, and still sounds awesome to this day. So if at all possible, you should play this on a proper sound setup. As you probably know by now, I love this game and I have to award it a 5 out of 5 score, as this is probably the best game I've played on my CD32 so far. I highly recommend that you go play this game now.